Hey everybody, Aaron Blaise here, and we are going to do another Aaron's art tip. We're back into doing it again. And the last art tip that I just gave last week was on how to do shiny metal, chrome, that sort of thing. And we had a request in the comment section from somebody, from Dan, that was asking if I could show how to do a glowing object. You know, how do you handle the lighting when you do something that's glowing? And it really is, it's kind of simple. You want to remember, in order for something to feel like it's glowing, it needs to be brighter than anything else in the room. So if you look at a light bulb that's glowing, it's brighter than anything else in the room. Even the brightest highlight shining off of a piece of metal in that room that's reflecting that light bulb, even that brightest highlight will not be as bright as the bulb itself. And that's the biggest thing to remember. So when you're creating something that you want to glow, it has to be the brightest light in your composition. Now, it doesn't need to be a super bright light. It just needs to be the brightest light. So you can have a relatively dark composition. Let's say a room that's just lit by candlelight. A candle isn't necessarily super bright, except the flame itself can be fairly bright. But the fact is that the light itself is fairly dim compared to the light that it's giving off. And that's the thing. So I want to show you kind of the way I think about it. If you have a character that might be, if you're doing a fantasy illustration and a character is holding a glowing orb, let's say, you want to make sure that the light that's being bounced around the room, if you have secondary light sources, that sort of thing, they can't be any brighter than the orb that character is going to be holding. And you're going to have to remember that light that the orb is giving off is going to be bouncing off everything else, and that'll be the brightest light in the composition. So I'm going to give you a very, very simple demonstration on what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's jump over to my screen. So if we think about, here I've created 6 different spheres of different colors, and I've got them sitting kind of in a circle. Now the sphere in the middle, that green sphere in the middle, that's going to be our glowing orb, okay? So I'm going to start with just creating some light and shadow on the orbs that are going all the way around. So I'm going to create a layer on top, okay? And I'm going to set that to multiply. And I'm going to, actually, let's do it this way. I'm going to start with, I'm going to lock all these layers. So I'm going to start with our orb in the middle. So I'm going to lock that layer right there. And now I can just kind of paint. And when I lock a layer, that means that I can't paint outside the area where the pixels are colored. And it makes it a little bit simpler for what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the value. Everything right now, I want to mention as well, is in a mid value. I've got everything basically in a local color. Local color is the color of an object when it's not lit and it's not in shadow. It's just the color of an object. It's a red apple, it's a green shirt, it's a yellow banana, whatever it might be. And then it's the light and shadow that we're going to add later. So that's what we're going to do now. So I'm grabbing some of that. I'm grabbing that local color, and I know that I want it to go darker and cooler. So I'm going to drop down. I'm going to push my local color to a little bit cooler, and I'm going to drop down a little bit darker. And I'm going to grab my airbrush, because these are spheres, and they're going to be nice, smooth shadows. Okay? So the first thing that I want to do is I'm thinking about, okay, this center ball, that's going to be our glowing orb right there. And so if I know that's going to be the glowing orb, then I know that it's going to be lighting the far side of this sphere right here, which means the back side, the side that's facing us, is going to be in shadow. A lot like the moon. And the moon in its different phases, all we're doing is seeing it from different angles as it's being lit by the sun. And so when we get to what's called the new moon, and I don't know why they call it a new moon, because there's no moon at all, we're actually seeing the back side of the shadow of the moon. It's being lit on the other side. So you really don't see it because it's in shadow. And it's as, through the 28 days in the cycle of a moon, as it's orbiting the Earth, it takes 28 days to go around the Earth. We're seeing it lit from different angles. And that's basically what we're going to show here. So I'm going to go in, and I'm just going to start to kind of darken up this part right here. But I don't want to go, because we're going to see a little bit of light on that edge. It's going to be a little bit rimlit because that orb is over on the upper left side of this object right here, of our sphere. So you can see, there we go. And I'm going to go maybe a little bit darker towards the core of the shadow, which is going to be exact opposite of where the light source is. Okay? So there we go. Now, I know that I want it to be lit, so I'm going to grab, once again, I'm going to grab that starting color. I'm going to go a little bit hotter with it and a little bit brighter right here. And we're going to just kind of rim light. It's just like that. And maybe go just a little bit brighter right at the hottest section. Now imagine if you were thinking about, a face being lit or something like that. You'll have a lot of different planes and you got to think about it in a different way. But right now what I'm doing is I'm showing you the simplest approach and the way to think about something glowing. Now already you can see, look how bright this is, this rim light right here. Now I've got to remember that our glowing orb is going to be even brighter than that. But look, even though this looks really bright, you can see that it's still quite a ways from being white, okay? So now let's jump over to our ball right here. I'm going to lock that layer. And once again, I'm going to grab that color and go a little bit cooler with it and a little bit darker. And I'm going to increase the size of our brush. And now you can see that the light source is a little bit different. So I'm coloring it a little bit differently. See? So I want this green ball in the middle is going to be our light source, and it's shining light against this ball right here. And so that shadow is going to be a little bit different. It's all about understanding your value, your brightest bright, your darkest dark. Value is light and dark. Knowing that glowing orb is going to be your brightest bright, and how that bright is going to be shining on different objects in the room, making sure that the brightest bright on the objects never are outshining, are never brighter than your orb or the glowing object, whatever that object might be. Once again, I'm going to grab our local color again. Now I'm going to go a little warmer with it and a little brighter. And now let's give it a nice brightness right along here. There we go. And maybe, like we did with the other one, I can go a little hotter, a little brighter, create just a little bit hot, a little more hotness right there. And actually, let's go, I'm going to let's go a little darker here. And like we did on the first ball, we go a little darker right over there. We don't really have any place for there to be any bounced light in here. So I'm not creating any kind of bounced light. Okay, so there's that. Now let's go to our ball in back here, this one right here. So we're going to grab that one, lock that layer, and now I'm going to start with, well actually let's go with we'll start with the shadow again. We'll keep it in the same order. So I'm going to go right down in here. I'm going to keep it in the same area and drop down the value, going a little over to the grayer cool side. Now I'm going to be just adding a little bit of shadow along the edge, right along here. That's about all the shadow we're going to see. That's it, okay? And then here, I'm going to go a little bit hotter and brighter with it. And now I want to get that right about in there. And we're going to create some light. Okay. Now, if we want to go like we did with the other ones, if we want to get a hot spot, let's go a little bit brighter. We can get it right about there. So now you can tell, just by the way we're creating our shadows right now, you can tell that there is a light source in the middle. Now that thing that's supposed to be glowing, it looks like it's dark, but we're gonna change that. So let's continue all the way around. So now we're going over to our violet image over here, and I'm gonna grab that color, and once again, maybe go a little cooler with it and darker. And we're going to do the same thing. Now, if this is our light source, I got to think about the opposite side. Whoops, I didn't lock it, did I? There we go. I got to lock it. There we go. So we got to go to the opposite side. Thinking about the opposite side and create a shadow. And there we go. Okay. Let's go a little darker. Just a touch of darkness on the right there, just a little bit. And then I want to go grab that local color again, go a little hotter with it and a little brighter. And let's get right about in here that bright light. Okay. And go a little hotter still, and maybe a touch brighter. And there is our brightness. All right, so we got to remember that these values, these bright values, that's going to be the darkest value of our glowing object. And it'll probably be even brighter than that. So this is going to be a very bright glowing object. So let's go down to our last and lock that layer. Our last green layer, we're going to grab the local color for that, and I'm going to go a little cooler with it, drop it down, and just like we did over here, it's going to be right about in here, I think. There, like that. Okay, and then we'll go just a smidge darker, and we'll get this darkness over here. Okay, there you go. Maybe a little bit, draw that out a little further. Okay, now we want to grab that local color again, go a bit hotter and brighter once again, and we're gonna hit that edge. Remembering that our center ball is going to be our light source. So now already you can see we've got a really kind of cool thing happening. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab our ball that's glowing, and I want to adjust its value. I'm going to bring its value up so that it's brighter than anything else. So I see how it's compared to the bright light on the ball in the background. I'm going to bring its value up, the value meaning brightness, up brighter than that, so that starts to look darker. That's going to be our first thing. So let me grab, I'm on that now, I'm going to lock its layer, and I'm going to go up to Image, Adjustments, and I'm going to go to Hue and Saturation. And in there I can adjust its lightness. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it brighter. Here we go. That's too bright. Right about maybe there. Right about there. Now you can see that it is brighter than the brighter light, just barely, maybe a little bit more. It's not quite white. If I grab that, you can see where it's at. You see that it's not white? You see that right there? Now, I want to go down really hot. And I'm going to bring it brighter right here. And you got to remember, a glowing object, if it's glowing, it is the light source. So that means it's not going to have any shadow on it because it's creating the light, okay? That's the one thing to remember about a glowing object. And usually if it's glowing from within, okay? So let's create a little bit of light right in the center, like it's creating that light right in the middle. Just like that. And then we can go pure white if we want to. I'm going to go, because I want this to feel like it's almost like a, like a light bulb. We're going to go super bright right here, right in the middle, like it's giving off that light. Now all of a sudden, remember when we started with the ball in the foreground right here, and we thought that rim light right there was really bright? Well, now that we've got the glowing object in there, and we've got it at the right value, meaning light and dark, look how much darker that is. And now it feels like this glowing orb. You see that? And that, my friends, is how you create a glowing orb. It's not glowing until you see it in relation to the objects around it. That's the key. You have to make sure that it is the brightest light within the composition in order for it to feel like it's glowing. If it becomes darker, then it's not going to feel like it's glowing, okay? If these guys were any brighter than this orb right here in the middle, then it would not feel like the light source, and therefore it would not feel like it's glowing. Now, you can have other areas, and I don't want to be confusing, because you can have something that, let's say we have a bright light in a room, like I'm talking to you right now, and I have a bright light over here, but maybe it's casting a shadow, and there's a dark enough shadow in the room where maybe I have a candle. And so within that shadow area, that candle might be the brightest light. Now, the candle might not be as bright as the main light source, but you can have the candle within the shadow glowing and lighting things within the shadow. So there's ways of breaking the rules of what I was just talking about, but still the number one rule is, in order for something to feel like it's glowing, it has to be the brightest light. Whether it's the brightest light in a room or it's the brightest light in a shadow. Okay, so in this case, where we started with 6 different balls, spheres, that were all the same value, different colors, we changed them, we added light and shadow and in varying degrees in order to create one light that was brighter than all the rest, that was casting the light on everything else, and therefore feels like it's glowing. Okay, now we can enhance this effect even more if we look at the background. So if we take the background, for instance, and let's make it a color, just because we'll change it from gray. Let's make it, well, we're in a warm color right now, so let's make it mid-tone orange. It'll be kind of brown. So let's color that background. Oops, I'm on the wrong thing, right here. Let's color that background like that. Now, if we want it to feel like it's lighting this environment, if it's sitting in space lighting it, and there's a little bit of atmosphere in there, there's a couple of things we can do. The first thing we want to do is we want to kind of darken the edges a little bit, because as the light goes out, it's going to dim. It won't be as strong. So one thing I'm going to do on here, just to save time, is I'm going to create a gradient. Now you can do this with painting if you want to, if you're painting on paper, but in this case I'm going to make it a little bit simpler. I'm going to create a gradient, and I'm going to grab our local color, and I'm going to go a little bit darker with it and a little cooler. And we're going to take our gradient, and I'm going to just darken towards our ball, because the ball is the center of light. You'll see that we're going to enhance that light effect, because all the light will feel like it's radiating out from that center. See there? Like that. Now, let's take that even further and brighten it in the middle. So I'm going to grab that local color again, which is We turn off our glow ball. Turn off the glow ball right. Oh, I got to turn this off. Let's turn off our glow ball. I'm going to grab that local color. Now I'm going to go really bright with it. Right there. Let's turn our glow ball back on, and I'm starting behind it basically. So I'm going to go to the glow ball, and I'm going to grab that center, and now I'm going to radiate out, and we're going to create a little bit of light like so. Let me knock that opacity back and redo that. Let's try it one more time. Grab that glow ball. I'm going to go out a little bit further, and there we go. Now, look at that nice effect we've got. Now it really feels like, because of the environment, we've created an environment that is all reacting to that one light in the center. Okay? That one light in the center is giving us our effect. Now we can enhance this even more. This is kind of a cool trick. If we take go to our glow ball, I keep calling it the glow ball for lack of a better thing to call it. Let's call it that. I'm going to copy that layer, and on the layer behind it, I'm going to take it off of I'm going to take it off of lock. And now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up to my filter gallery, and I'm going to go to blur, my blur gallery. My blur. I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring it out just a little bit so the blur goes out about 82 pixels in this case. And look what's happening. I'm getting kind of this halo around the edge. You see that? This kind of glowing halo around the edge. And that's all based off of the value that we have underneath. And so now we've got this really wonderful effect of this glowing object lighting all these other objects around it. Okay? It's a very simple thought process. Just think about if you want something to glow, once again, I sound like a broken record. It needs to be the brightest value, the brightest bright within the composition. Okay? Right now I'm showing you in the simplest way that I can with these spheres. But there's other ways of doing it. If you have a character holding an object, you got to think about how that light is playing on the planes of the face in order for that to feel like it's being lit. So the shadows have to fall according to the light in the hand, just like we've done here, but it's going to be more complex. Okay, and I think here we could even go a little darker on this guy right here, and I'd take it down almost black and go back to here, and let's go back to our airbrush and darken that even more. I'm going to go bigger on the airbrush, so that it really feels like it's being silhouetted. There, look at that. That's a really good sense of light right there. So there you go. That is how you create a glowing object within a composition. I hope you learned something. Go out there and put some beauty back in the world, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks.